Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On's NHL Point Total Preview. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. This is more than just a look at the upcoming season on the ice. This list was built in conjunction with our partners at BetOnline, predicting every team's point total in the NHL. So how does Vegas think your favorite team will fare this season? We have BetOnline's list, and all of our Locked On hosts from around the league are here to discuss it. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On NHL wherever you get your podcasts. We've broken it all down with our Locked On hosts who cover these teams every single day. 3 of the top 5 win totals in hockey by BetOnline's numbers come from the Atlantic Division. It also has the reigning MVP, the President's Trophy winner, and the biggest trade piece from the offseason coming into 2022. As the league gets ready for the season, our local Locked On hosts give you their takes on their team's predicted win totals.
Adam Tanker here from Locked On Lightning, here to give you my reaction to the BetOnline.net over-under prediction on the Tampa Bay Lightning for the 2022-23 season. Now, BetOnline is projecting the Lightning will have 103.5 points this year, opened up at 108.5 last season, finished with 110. So that tells me that BetOnline doesn't think that the Lightning will be as good as this year. I am inclined to agree. The Lightning are taking a little bit of a step back, leaving some pieces out on the table this year with letting Jan Rutta go in free agency and letting go of Ryan McDonough, trading him away to Nashville. They do have some new pieces this year in Philippe Myers and Ian Cole in their defensive pairing, as well as, they're going to see more production from guys like Ross Colton, as well as some new faces here and there from Syracuse. What they will lack, though, in the beginning of the season is Zach Bogosian as well as Anthony Cirelli. We won't see those guys till November, so I'm going to sit here and say that is right on par. I'm going to say, though, that the Lightning will finish a little bit higher of that, maybe in the 104, 105 mark. Keep track of all things Lightning this season as they try to go back to the Stanley Cup Finals for a 4th straight year. Go to our page and our YouTube channel and stay with us as we look towards the season.
Hey there, everyone. It is Scott Matla from Locked On Canadiens, and I'm here to tell you why 71.5 points might be just a little under what I'm expecting from the Montreal Canadiens this year. That is their point total set by our friends at BetOnline. And yes, last year they were projected 89.5 points, a fringe playoff team, and finished with 55 points. But I look at this season with a little bit of optimism in that they have a full year of Martin St. Louis behind the bench, which means a full year of Dynamite Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki play. The team is not going to have the injuries they went through last year. They're not going to be left treading water. I don't think they're going to be a great team, mind you, but I think they might surprise. And at 71.5 points, it looks like a potential smart bet to maybe bet that they're going to hit over that this year. I really do think they have the talent capable of doing this. And I guess now with opening night less than a week away, we will wait and see. And for more on the Canadiens ahead of a pivotal season, please check out Locked On Canadiens wherever you get your daily podcast or on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at LO_Canadiens.
Hello, everybody. This is Armando Velez from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, here to tell you why 105.5 on the over-under for the Florida Panthers is just about right. Although the Florida Panthers had a 122-point season, their franchise best and setting offensive records since the 1996 Pittsburgh Penguins, it was going to always be hard for the Florida Panthers to repeat this. But the thing with the Panthers is they ran out of gas right when they got to the playoffs. Didn't even look good in their first round series that they won against the Washington Capitals. So some changes had to be made. Of course, they couldn't fit Claude Giroux, Ben Sherratt, and Mason Marchment under the cap as far as UFAs. And of course, the big trade for the Florida Panthers, sending Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, who are going to be expiring contracts after this season, and bringing in a Matthew Tkachuk and extending him for 8 years for the Cats. So this is more of a patient approach for the Panthers and more of a long-term deal for the Panthers, and getting a younger guy and a little bit of a different style for the Panthers as someone who is more of a person who crashes the net for the Panthers. And with the defense, let's go there. Gus Forsling is going to be on the top pair for the Panthers this season, but the other two pairs on the left side, especially with Mark Stahl, a little bit on the older side, but still can play valuable penalty kill minutes, but still not like he was back when he played for the New York Rangers. And Lucas Carlson, who hasn't played a full NHL season, is going to be likely on the third pair to start the year for the Cats. So a little bit of a different look for the Panthers on the blue line, but it's going to take a little bit of growing pains. And let's not forget a new head coach in Paul Maurice, who they're likely going to go away from that run and gun style that got them to their offensive production. So this for the Florida Panthers seems to be about right for where their over under is.
Joe DiBiase from the Locked On Sabres podcast on why the Sabres over-under point total of 77.5 is just too low for this season. I get it. They've been the worst team in hockey for 10 years, and they didn't make glamorous moves like some of their division rivals did, Detroit and Ottawa, this offseason. But there's one reason why I think the Sabres will hit the over this year and why that number should be a little bit higher: goaltending. Last year, 27th in the NHL in save percentage at .894. There was nowhere to go but up. And the Sabres' big move, if they made one this offseason, they really didn't make one, but Eric Comrie, former Winnipeg Jets goaltender, would be the answer. Last year, you know where he ranked in save percentage? Number 3 in the league was Igor Shesterkin. Number 2 in the league was Ilya Sorokin. Number 1 in the NHL was Eric Comrie at a .936. Limited sample size, but if you could do that in a longer stretch of games, the Sabres will hit the over just on their goaltending alone. For more on this Buffalo Sabres season, stay tuned to the Locked On Sabres podcast for free wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube.
Hey, Brian Fisher of Locked On Red Wings here to tell you that Detroit is going to be over BetOnline.net's line of 84.5 total points this season. They improved everywhere on the ice, making big splashes in free agency, adding Ben Sherratt and Oli Mata to the defensive core. A slew of talented forwards came in as well, like David Perron and Andrew Kopp, to give them a bona fide top 6, as well as traded for goaltender Ville Husso to create a shutdown tandem of him and Alex Nedeljkovic. And who can forget the return of reigning Calder champ Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond, looking to take another step forward in both of their developments. Now, this is still the Atlantic Division, arguably the toughest in hockey, but the improvements Detroit made to their roster, as well as the addition of new head coach Derek Lalonde behind the bench, should make for an electric season, the first they've had in a while. Again, over 84.5 points for the Detroit Red Wings this season. For more on the Red Wings, subscribe to Locked On Red Wings on YouTube or follow us wherever you get your podcasts.
Smash the over on the Ottawa Senators point total this upcoming season. I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Senators alongside Brandon Pillar to tell you why 86.5 points, which was set by BetOnline, is not high enough.
This is a completely new offense. Anytime you bring in a 40-plus goal scorer and a respected veteran that can still get it done, and one more year of development with young players like Josh Norris, Brady Tkachuk, and Tim Stützle, this team is going to outscore a lot of their problems.
And they're going to be fun too. So don't be shy betting the over in individual games as well. For more on this team, you can join us over at Locked On Senators, wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube.
The Boston Bruins are hitting the over this season. This is Ian McClair from Locked On Boston Bruins, here to tell you why the 95.5 over-under total for this year's Bruins per BetOnline is too low. Yes, the Bruins will be dealing with massive injuries to begin the season, with Brad Marchand, Charlie McAvoy, and Matt Grzelcyk on the shelf after undergoing off-season surgeries. But the Bruins possess the talent, leadership, and character to stay afloat in their collective absences, not to mention newcomers like Pavel Zacha and Hampus Lindholm, who are ready to step up. When healthy, this roster is arguably better than last year's, especially with David Krejci filling a big hole he left last season while playing in Czechia. New head coach Jim Montgomery doesn't need to reinvent the wheel here, and an ability to get more out of some somewhat desensitized youngsters could go a long way towards putting the Bruins over the 100-point mark. For all the latest on the Bruins, subscribe to Locked On Bruins for free wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube.
With names like Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, and Max Pacioretty highlighting things, the Metropolitan Division is clearly full of veteran leadership. Those teams hope that experience and ice time will lead to their first Stanley Cup for the Metro since 2018. Our Locked On hosts have the details from top to bottom on what BetOnline thinks of their teams in 2022.
What's up, guys? This is Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils here to give you the over/under for the New Jersey Devils, courtesy of our friends of BetOnline.net. Now, the over/under for New Jersey Devils is 88.5%. Last year, the New Jersey Devils had a 90.5%, and they finished with 63 points. Now, I'm here to tell you the New Jersey Devils are going to get the over, and here's why. Jack Hughes is going to definitely play in more games because injuries were a problem for Jack Hughes last year, but he has come back fully healthy. And if he is able to suit up anywhere from 70 to all 82 games, you can definitely anticipate a big MVP type of year from Jack Hughes. And I think that he's either going to eclipse 100 points or he's going to be relatively close. And if he does get 100 or so points, he'll be the first New Jersey Devil to do so in franchise history. The goaltending has gotten better. Andre Palat is definitely a solid veteran that the New Jersey Devils were able to acquire during the course of free agency. So the New Jersey Devils have gotten better during the course of this offseason. Dougie Hamilton is definitely going to hopefully return back to normal after suffering a facial fracture. So the New Jersey Devils, while it wasn't the most successful offseason, they still improved mightily, and the goaltending is going to be better, the defense is going to be better, and the overall scoring, especially from Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, and Jesper Bratt, is projected to be better as well. So that's why the New Jersey Devils are going to get the over in this regards, and that was courtesy of our friends of BetOnline.net.
The Washington Capitals will exceed the over-under this season. Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals here. The Capitals finished with 100 points last season with inconsistent net minding. The over-under is 93.5 and is low considering the Capitals signed Stanley Cup winning goalie Darcy Kemper and Charlie Lindgren in the offseason, solidifying the net minding position. The Caps have faced some pretty major injuries with Tom Wilson and Nick Backstrom, but they've solidified those positions by signing Connor Brown and Dylan Strome to fill those voids in their absence. The Metro in general got better, but so did the Capitals. Alex Ovechkin is getting older but aging like a fine wine. At 36, he got 50 goals and isn't showing signs of slowing down. Follow Locked On Capitals all season long, available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Locked On Capitals, your team every day.
The New York Islanders will hit the over this season. Hi, I'm Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders, and BetOnline.net has placed the Islanders over-under mark this year at 94.5 points. Last year, it was at 99.5. We all know the Islanders disappointed and finished with 84 points, but I'll tell you that's not going to happen this year. I think they'll hit the over on 94.5, mainly because, A, they're not opening the season with a 13-game road trip. They are not going to be dealing with COVID the same way they were a year ago, and I think that with a little bit more mobility on defense and a faster team on the ice, they will be good enough to shut down teams, and we'll see more of the Islander team we saw 2 years ago and 3 years ago than the team we saw last year. So I think go with the over on the Islanders with the 94.5. Again, I'm Gil Martin, and for more on the Islanders throughout the year, watch and listen to the Locked On Islanders podcast.
Hey everyone, I'm Hunter Hodes here to tell you why BetOnline's over-under for 101.5 is a bit too low for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Last year, the over-under was about 98.5. The Penguins finished with 103. And that came with a lot of injuries, a lot of COVID positives, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Mike Sullivan did a tremendous job with this team last season. But going into the season, knock on wood, at least they are fully healthy. There's no injuries to Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby. I think that played a role in it looking, a little bad at times last year. But once they got them back, they were flying high. They were winning a lot of games. Took a little bit of a dip towards the end of the regular season, but then they were able to play well. They were able to play well in the playoffs, even though they still lost in the first round against the New York Rangers. But I like the defense going into this year. I think the forward group is still pretty deep, even though it's not as deep as last year. And if Tristan Jarry plays at the level he played at during the regular season last year, they should easily be able to hit the over. I think they'll definitely hit around 103 to about 106 points this season. I think a 101.5 is a bit too low, in my opinion. For more on the Pittsburgh Penguins, you can subscribe to the Locked On Penguins podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Jared Ellis here, host of Locked On Hurricanes, here to tell you why the 102.5 points for this year's Carolina Hurricanes per BetOnline is a little too low. Yes, the Carolina Hurricanes did finish with a franchise best 116 points last year. And this year, the team on paper is even better. The team is absolutely stacked at the forward position right now. There's that position battle for that fourth line going on right now in training camp and preseason. And come late January, early February, Max Pacioretty will be coming back from injury. So the forward group will get even stronger then. On the blue line side of things, that is another group that is even better than last year. We added Brent Burns in the offseason, who has been absolutely stellar during the preseason. And then for the third pairing, a position battle between four guys: Ethan Bear, Dylan Coghlan, Calvin DeHaan, and Jalen Chatfield, all vying for that third pairing down there. And should he be healthy in time, Jake Gardiner coming back into the fold as well on that third pairing. You also have the goalies healthy again. Freddie Anderson was on a Vezina caliber season last year, but he tore his MCL. Antti Raanta carried the team in the playoffs. And biggest of all is the organizational depth that the Hurricanes have. When it comes to their AHL team, you have guys like Stefan Nazin, Jalen Chatfield, should he be going back, Ryan Dzingel, Pyotr Kochetkov, and the list goes on. I think the Carolina Hurricanes would be on par to match or exceed their point total from last year. So make sure you follow Locked On Hurricanes on all streaming platforms and subscribe on YouTube to keep up to date this season.
The Columbus Blue Jackets are definitely hitting the over this season. Jay Foster of Locked On Blue Jackets here, and I'm going to tell you why the Blue Jackets are going to hit the BetOnline over-under total of 80.5 points this season, and honestly, I think they're going to smash through that, and here is why. I got one answer: Johnny Gaudreau. The Blue Jackets got better this season in basically every area except potentially goaltending, but I'm expecting Elvis Merzlikins to have a bounce-back season. They got better on defense. They got older. They got a little more experience. They added some new talent. And the forwards, we all know about the forwards. Patrick Laine, Johnny Gaudreau are going to create some magic together. The Blue Jackets finished last season with 81 points. They were predicted by BetOnline to have 76.5. And honestly, I think that the Blue Jackets can pick up at least 10 more points. I don't think they're going to be a 100-point team. I think the Columbus Blue Jackets can be a 90-point team this season. And if you want to come and learn more about the Blue Jackets and why I think that, you can find Locked On Blue Jackets wherever you get your podcasts and also over on YouTube. So enjoy the season as much as I am planning to.
Russ Cohen here from the Locked On Flyers podcast. Our good friends at BetOnline have given a line of 73.5 points for the Flyers this year. Will they come in over or under that? I'm going to go under. It's a tough number. Like, they always get these numbers close. I'm going to go under because I think there's a chance that even the Canadians could be better than the Flyers. It's an outside chance. So I would say take the under because we still don't know the health of Carter Hart. I would suspect he's going to play opening night, but you never know. Goaltending depth is a little weak. They're not scoring much, as you can see. It's only preseason. I get it, but there's other factors here. So this is where I think the Flyers are right now. I think it's going to be a tough season. So that's my recommendation.
The New York Rangers will hit the over this season. Hey, this is John Chick with Locked On New York Rangers, here to tell you why the Rangers at 99.5 points for this upcoming season. That is just too low for this team when you consider the fact that The Rangers this past season had 110 points. So for the under to hit, they would have to do 11 points worse this season than they did this past season. And I just don't see that happening. For starters, pretty much the entire core is back. The only non-rental player that left in free agency this season that's, significant to the team is Ryan Strome, and he was replaced by Vincent Trocheck, who probably represents at least a little bit of an upgrade there. I think you also have to consider the fact that this Ranger team last year was very, very consistent, very, very steady, did not endure long stretches of bad play or lengthy losing streaks or anything like that. And when you've got Igor Shesterkin, that should continue. Losing streaks, lengthy losing streaks should not be a part of this team's season this upcoming year. You consider the fact that the kid line had a nice run for itself in the playoffs. A lot of those guys are going to be probably taking the next step forward this upcoming season. And Chris Drury, he had an amazing trade deadline this past season, and he'll probably do the same thing this year. If the Rangers are in a situation where they're contending, which I think they will be, he'll go out there and he'll find pieces to add to this team for the stretch run, which, should help push the Rangers, should help ensure that the Rangers get the over. I don't see an 11-point drop from last season to this season. Rangers hit the over.
The Central holds the Stanley Cup after Colorado took the trophy last season, but it also has some of the worst teams in hockey as well, as reflected on BetOnline's list. The Central gave us a league-high 5 playoff teams in 2021, and our Locked On hosts tell you what they think about the projections from BetOnline in 2022.
Can the Nashville Predators get to 98 points and hit the over this season? Absolutely, with one small catch. I'm Nick Morgan from the Locked On Predators podcast. Our friends at BetOnline have put the Predators over-under on points this season at 97.5. Remember, they had 97 total last season. They probably should have had at least 100, gave up 3 points down the stretch. But the good news with that is the Predators went out and addressed a lot of the shortcomings that made them falter down the stretch. And because of that, I think there is more things in store for the Nashville Predators this season. The big issue, though, the health of UC Saros. If he's not 100% from his injury last year, which we think he is, or he stumbles at all, has kind of a setback year, the Predators might be in trouble. So let's check out and see if the Preds can do it. Be sure to listen to us every day on the Locked On Predators podcast, free and available wherever you get your podcast, or catch us on YouTube at the Locked On Predators channel.
Expect yet another basement year for the Arizona Coyotes. I'm Robin Leonio from the Locked On Coyotes podcast, and BetOnline's total points projection for the Arizona Coyotes has been set at 65.5 points, which, if you ask me, is just a little bit too high. Yes, this projection is tied for BetOnline's worst projection alongside the Chicago Blackhawks for their total points. But let's remember, Arizona only finished with 57 points last year, just 1 point more than their franchise worst. And with the Yotes in the thick of the tank hard for Bedard's sweepstakes, don't expect them to do much better. Plus, Arizona has just way too many questions heading into this year. How does Jacob Chychrun fit into this franchise, and how does the blue line stack up otherwise? Plus, will we be seeing a goalie carousel in Arizona, or will Karel-Melka find his stable tandem? Make sure you keep your expectations low for Arizona this year. For more on the Yotes, be sure to subscribe to the Locked On Coyotes podcast for free wherever you get your podcasts, including on YouTube.
All right, the Stanley Cup defending champion Colorado Avalanche had 119 points in last year's season. For this year, betonline.net has them coming in at 112.5, coming back down to earth a little bit. Still, that's one of the highest in the league, and they are the favorite to win the division. What say you, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom? 112.5 points on the season for the Avalanche. Too high, too low, or just about right?
Honestly, if you're asking me, I think that's just about right. If you want to say go a little bit under, maybe, because the Avalanche are prone to injuries. It's kind of what we do, and everybody has game tape on how this Avalanche team is built. So I would say 112 sounds about right. If you want to go a little bit lower, I think that might be a little safe.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think this one is kind of spot on. Obviously you can't get a half a point. So I guess if you want to go the over by a half a point, go that route. I think the Avs are right in line with about 113 points on the season with all of those big pieces that they lost with Kadri, and Burakovsky, and then obviously losing Kemper in goal, you lose some offensive ability, and maybe you lose a couple games because of that. But they still have a all-world defense, which is going to win them games. And I don't think a 113-point season is out of the realm of possibility. I think it's very achievable for this Avalanche team, and that should be enough to win the division. Check us out all season long over at Locked On Avalanche, and go Avs go.
If you're the Winnipeg Jets, you had better hope that you're hitting the over for this season, because per BetOnline, the Jets are sitting at an over-under at around 88.5 standings points. Now, for me, I'm Harrison Lee of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, and having seen this team's offseason, having seen what the Jets did in previous years, the early signs from Rick Bowness under this team's new tactical direction, maybe an emphasis on youth. Look, I can see some reasons as to why the Jets might not be a sexy pick, right? You're looking at a lot of the competition in the West. Maybe the Jets don't stack up well against teams like Calgary, Vegas, maybe even LA. And in the Central Division, of course, the Jets are well behind the Colorado Avalanche, who open with the highest standings points possible, which is not really shocking. But, 88.5 for me still feels kind of low. The Jets hit 89 last year, and given that this included several stints with Dave Lowry and Paul Maurice, obviously the team's tactical approach, the mediocre defense, the poor offense, all of this stuff kind of spiraled into a really nasty mixture of a team that just wasn't playoff competitive. But this year, this Jets team might be a lot more defensively stable, might actually create a little bit better, and might be more consistent. And if Hellebuck has a Vezina caliber season again, on top of the improvements to the team and the tactical structure, I would say bet on the over here. I think the Jets are primed for at least a 92 to 93 point season, but Winnipeg still has a lot of ground to cover. There are so many questions about the roster, the lineup, who's even going to be making the team, and if all of Rick Bowness's tactical adjustments are really going to have a positive impact come the start of the regular season. But of course, if you're wanting to stay up to date on the latest and greatest with the Jets and follow the journey as Winnipeg climbs its way up the standings ladder, be sure to follow Locked On Winnipeg Jets on your favorite podcasting platform of choice. It's free to subscribe, and as always, we really love and appreciate your support, so go Jets go.
The St. Louis Blues are hitting the over this season. I'm Josh Hyman with Locked On Blues, and I'm here to tell you why the Blues' projected point total over-under of 95.5 is just a little bit too low to where they're going to end up this season. Now, last season, the St. Louis Blues opened with over-under odds of 94.5 points, and they blew that out of the water with a 109-point season. And there's no reason to believe the Blues can't do that again. They only lost David Perron on offense. The offense is just as high-powered. They had 9 20-goal scorers among their forwards last year, and 8 of them are still on the roster. There's no reason to believe that the Blues can't repeat that offensive success again. Plus, Jordan Binnington is looking like a man ready for a comeback story. He looked spectacular in the playoffs before he got injured last year. Looked as good as he has looked since the 2019 Stanley Cup, where we all know what happened there. Plus, the defense is looking a little bit better. They got a lot of young talent coming up. I'm so excited to watch the Blues destroy that over. 95.5, way too low. Way too low. For all your updates about the St. Louis Blues, make sure you follow or subscribe to Locked On Blues wherever you get your podcast. Plus, subscribe to Locked On Blues on YouTube and follow the account on Twitter at Locked On Blues. Let's go Blues.
Hey everybody, Dane Lewis here with Locked On Stars, here to talk about BetOnline.net's over-under projection for the Dallas Stars for this upcoming NHL season. BetOnline.net has the over-under at 93.5 for the Stars. Last season, the Stars opened at 95.5 points for the year, and they finished with 98. But now the odds makers have the Stars maybe taking a small step back, only projecting that they finish with around 93 points, having them at 93.5 points for the 2022-2023 season. I personally believe that this is slightly too low. I do think the Dallas Stars are missing some key players. They lose guys like Alexander Radulov and John Klingberg over the offseason, but they also made some nice additions to the roster. Mainly Mason Marchment. He comes over from the Florida Panthers looking to add an offensive spark plug to this team that has struggled to score goals over the past few seasons. But we are also seeing Jake Ottinger return to the team. We are likely going to be seeing that incredible top line of Rope Hintz, Joe Pavelski, and Jason Robertson come back into the system for Dallas. And of course, Peter DeBoer comes to town, a guy who will be looking to add to the offensive attack from a coaching standpoint, a team that has really struggled to score goals over the past few seasons, the Dallas Stars. I think this is a year where they will take a step forward offensively. They're going to score more goals than they did last season. I think they're going to be able to compete with guys like Miro Heiskanen finally being the number one guy on the blue line for this Stars team. I think they're an underrated team, a slept-on team going into this season, but a team that is going to not be an easy out for any other squad in the NHL. So I predict that the Dallas Stars finish in around the 94 to 95 point marker for the 2022-2023 season. If you want more information on the Dallas Stars, we are covering all things Dallas Stars from training camp all the way through the regular season on the Locked On Dallas Stars podcast. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast at, absolutely free.
What's up, everyone? This is Jack Bushman from Locked On Blackhawks, here to tell you why 65.5 points is still too low for the Chicago Blackhawks this season. And look, I'd love more than anything for Connor Bedard to be announced as the number one overall pick to the Blackhawks next summer, but at least on paper, I just don't see the Blackhawks being the worst team in the NHL. Now, maybe in the second half of the season when and if they trade away Taves, Kane, Athanasiou, Domi, and potentially more players, that's, what's going to get the Blackhawks close to this 65-point range. But with a full arsenal in the opening half of the season, I just don't see them being the worst team in the NHL like some folks expect. So I think it's going to be close, but I am going over 65.5 points for the Chicago Blackhawks this season. They won't be the worst team in the NHL, but hopefully they'll still land that number one overall selection thanks to some luck in the NHL draft lottery. For more coverage on the Blackhawks throughout the first year of their rebuild, be sure to check out the Locked On Blackhawks podcast for free wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube.
What's happening, everybody? Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, here to tell you why BetOnline.net's point total over-under for the Minnesota Wild in 2022-2023 of 101.5 feels just about on the nose for me. If I had to pick one way or the other, I'm taking the over. Yes, the Wild did lose Kevin Fiala and Cam Talbot in the offseason, but the power play and the penalty kill are going to be better. And this team is still right in the thick of things with the rest of the Central Division behind the Colorado Avalanche, which tells me the Wild will be right in the playoff push up until the end of the season, which means that they are going to be trying to go for it as much as possible. So take the over on 101.5. And for more on the Minnesota Wild, make sure you're following Locked On Wild wherever you listen to your podcasts.
The Pacific Division got just 3 playoff teams last season, but it also has 5 90-point teams, and there's plenty of teams hoping to take that next step this year. Our Locked On local experts tell you the keys to making that happen while looking at the predictions from BetOnline.
Hey everybody, Chris Golick from Locked On Vegas Golden Knights here, and I'm here to tell you why 97.5 points projected for the Vegas Golden Knights is just a bit too low. Last season, the Vegas Golden Knights had 94 points. They opened with a line of 106.5 points, which was very high. Last season, over 500 man games lost. We had a change in the coaching guard, Cassidy taking over for DeBoer. Phil Kessel is here. Logan Thompson is our day one starter. The Vegas Golden Knights will finish a tick or so higher than 97.5 points. I expect them to come in somewhere between 100 to 102 points. Go Knights, go.
Hey, Seattle hockey fans, Erica L. Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken, and I'm here to tell you why the 81.5 over-under for this year's Seattle Kraken team from BetOnline is too high. That effectively makes the Seattle Kraken a 500 team. I think we have improved offensively. I think goaltending will look a lot different. I'm all about the possession hockey that we want to play, and our best defense is our offense. That being said, you still need defense. And I've told you before, I'll say it again, the Seattle Kraken have not made enough improvements on defense to be a 500 or better team. I think we're close, but we still need some defense. For my thoughts on the Seattle Kraken and, of course, other lines and odds from BetOnline, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Kraken on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
What is up, everybody? It is Justin Puny from Locked On Canucks, the show that keeps you locked in on all things Vancouver Canucks. And I'm here to tell you why you should take the over on the Vancouver Canucks point total for this upcoming season. The Canucks point total set by BetOnline is at 92.5. Of course, last year they finished with 94 points, and the over is a slam dunk for this upcoming season because the JT Miller is signed, sealed, and delivered. Ilya Mikheyev will be a factor. Andrei Kuzmenko chose Vancouver. This team up front is absolutely loaded with depth. Thatcher Demko is a number one goalie. Quinn Hughes will take that next leap. And this Vancouver Canucks team will be a playoff team. No ifs, ands, or anything about it. This team is loaded up front. They're deep. They're playing in a division that is wide open. So take the Vancouver Canucks over point totals and take them to be a playoff team. And of course, keep it locked in here on Locked On Canucks for all your Canucks news, notes, stats, and opinions. All of that here on the Locked On Sports Network.
80.5 points is simply too low for the Anaheim Ducks. Hi everyone, Jason JD Hernandez here from Locked On Anaheim Ducks, and I'm here to tell you why the 80.5 over-under for this year's Ducks is just too low. The Ducks are going to hit the over on the points easily, and I even had them prospected at possibly going 85 to 90 points this season. Look, last season, the Ducks did wind up with only 76 points. That's not bad. But the Ducks have made some improvements on offense, and they also gained a Mason McTavish as well. Zegras looking to have a huge monster year. Hopefully he will play all 82 games. And with the addition of John Klingberg on the blue line, and also picking up Strome and Vetrano, could help the Ducks offensively, and I could see them easily getting at least 85 points this season. But I do think the 80.5 for the over-under on BetOnline is too low. So if you want to take a bet on this, I would take the over on this. Yeah, take the over for sure. 4 more on the Ducks ahead of what could be a great season for the Ducks. Subscribe to Locked On Ducks for free wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube.
Brett Holden here from Locked On Oilers, here to tell you why the 103.5 over-under total for the Edmonton Oilers this season is way too low. Just last season, the Edmonton Oilers had 104 points coming out of the Pacific Division. Now they did that with Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen in the net. This season, the Edmonton Oilers are going to have Jack Campbell, who won over 30 games in Toronto for a very good Toronto Maple Leafs team there. And they have a goaltender that they have developed from the word go in Stuart Skinner. Additionally, the Edmonton Oilers will have Evander Kane for an entire year. Dylan Holloway is expected to make the lineup, and the defense is relatively the same, minus Duncan Keith, but Brett Kulak for an entire season. 4 more on the Oilers ahead of this pivotal season. Subscribe to Locked On Oilers wherever you find your podcast for free, and subscribe to our YouTube.
The Calgary Flames will be hitting the over this season. Jess Belmoster here from Locked On Flames, here to tell you why the 102.5 points are they're just a little too low for the Calgary Flames. This offseason was a lot for the Flames in terms of coming and going, and this team only got stronger. They have added 115-point Hart Trophy nominee Jonathan Huberdeau. They added Nazem Kadri. Their center depth is perfect. They are looking so strong. And not only do they have their forward groups, they also have their defensemen who are fantastic at moving the puck and finding the back of the net as well. And I think that it is safe to say that this team will be winning the division again this year, back-to-back. And they will do that by hitting the over of the 102 projected points. And of course, you can hear more about the Flames on Locked On Flames, and make sure that you're subscribed wherever you listen to your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. It's free 99, baby.
The Los Angeles Kings are hitting the over this season. Eddie Garcia here from Locked On LA Kings to tell you why the 95.5 over-under total for this year's Kings per BetOnline is too low. The LA Kings had 99 points last season. They lost no one of significance this offseason. Anyone concerned about the departures of Andreas Athanasiou and Oli Mata? No. The Kings added one of the biggest free agents this offseason in Kevin Fiala, who had 33 goals and 85 points for the Wild last season, addressing their biggest offseason need. The Kings should be healthier this season, having lost defenseman Drew Doughty and Sean Walker for most of last season, and the young players in the lineup like former high draft picks Quentin Byfield, Gabe Velarde, and Arthur Kaliev are more experienced and thus should produce more. Plus, the Pacific Division hasn't significantly improved, with only the Flames and Oilers on paper being better than the Kings. It should also be pointed out that the LA Kings outperformed last year's BetOnline over-under total, which was 85.5. For more on the LA Kings ahead of this highly anticipated season, subscribe to Locked On LA Kings for free wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube.
The San Jose Sharks are going to be one of the 5 worst teams in the NHL, so take the under of 74.5 points. I'm JD Young of Locked On Sharks. And while the Sharks did add more NHL caliber players like Luke Kunin and Nico Sturm this offseason, they still have a lot of questions. With Brent Burns' departure, Erik Karlsson is the only offensive defenseman that they have, and we're not even sure if he can play 60 games, let alone a full NHL season. James Reimer can't be the same guy that we saw last year. We saw him start to break down and wear down as the season ended, and Kaapo Kähkönen has never been the number one goalie. So all these factors combined with what should be an improved Pacific Division has the Sharks looking at the under on 74.5 points. So make sure you guys follow along for all Sharks as they continue to head towards hopefully a Connor Bedard season. So subscribe to Locked On Sharks for free wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube.
That's a wrap for our point total preview according to BetOnline, where the game starts. You can follow your team's Locked On NHL podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, and of course, your favorite teams as well. I'm Kainani Stevens. This is Locked On, your team every day.